One line left on the corner. I gotta go over and take her out, got her covered. Brushed it in the sink, washed it down the drain. That was the kind of stuff I collected. That was a great question.
Making sausage or something?
45 minutes or so. Usually I'm the one
We've heard stuff like that.
Kevin, don't look so serious. I'm telling you what,
Jesus God.
I think Batman didn't have, or no, Superman didn't have them eyes focused on that.
Zooming in, that's right. Lovely game plan here, Larry.
I hear you. That's you wanna keep this show on the road, you late.
You got the camera on, didn't you?
Huh?
You took care of turning the camera on, right?
Camera's on. Smile.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started for our meeting tonight. And I believe, did you all work it out?
I think so.
Okay, I think our opening of our meeting for our pledge and our invocation.
Attention, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear God and Heavenly Father, it's again we come to you, God, thanking you for the beautiful day today. God, we thank you for protecting our first responders, our police, our military. God, keep your hand of safety down around them. Now, God, as we enter into this business, we ask that you give us wisdom and knowledge to make those right decisions that is good for our county. And these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we have had a request tonight too to make sure that we have our microphones on because they were having a little trouble hearing everyone. So if you just tap kind of to see if your microphone is on, and if not, you can push the button underneath it. Alright, the next thing on our agenda is we're going into the approval of the minutes, and I did pull the minutes up on the screen just in case anyone out in the audience or anything needed to look at those. I am going to request, I would like to ask that the board to start to review the minutes prior to the meeting so that we can kind of keep our meeting moving along and we can make corrections quickly and just kind of just keep things flowing. So I think that we're getting those minutes out early enough that people should have enough time to go ahead and review them. So I will give you a few minutes tonight to look over those minutes and see if there's anything and corrections we need to make. I get a motion to approve those minutes? Or,
I make a motion for.
Second.
all right, any discussion on those minutes? Corrections? All right, if there are none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor to approve those minutes of March 9th, signify by aye.
Aye.
Kelly, I'll abstain, since I wasn't here for the meeting.
I understand. I will make a note of that Mr. Fields abstained. So, next on our agenda, we have items of public concern, and I did not pick that. Richard, are you the only one on our list tonight?
I'm sorry,
Are you the only one on our list tonight?
what's that way?
I'm afraid not. No, I didn't sign in. I didn't know we had to sign in.
I'll put that on.
You can put your last.
That's a given, ain't it, Pat?
It's gonna cost, Pat, it's gonna cost.
Sorry about that.
Pat, that's not your writing, so I just don't know if I can have you speak tonight, so.
I come before you tonight, first off, I'm Richard Anglin from Etobicoke Village. Haven't been to one of your meetings in a while, I apologize, been out of town. Two issues. I don't see the first issue that I'd like to talk about on your agenda, which is, where are we with the merger between Republic and Centec?
Yeah, I can provide a quick update on that. So the DOJ has completed, filed a consent decree and hold separate agreement, which the judge executed a few days ago. So there is a tentative projected date of May 3rd for the closing. And at that time, that's the information I have.
Are you aware that Centec and Republic both have to divest both the commercial pickups, trash pickups, and landfill all the way from Texas to New York?
I know there are some divestitures, yes.
All right, I'm not gonna embarrass you, I'm gonna give you a copy
You-
of
sure.
what I found today. It's what I've been talking about since last year.
Well, since Richard did bring this up and things, I'm gonna go ahead and pass this out, this article.
Same one,
too bad.
probably.
Probably
Thanks, Richard.
is. There. Looky, there it is. Mine you can read a little bit better than yours, Richard.
Basically, what I found in 5 minutes this afternoon doing a little research is the Department of Justice has informed as of March 31st, Republic will be required to divest and dispose of assets in 5 states, Tennessee being one of them. They specifically cite Chattanooga because of northern Georgia and the lack of competition down there. Today's settlement, which requires Republic and Centec to divest numerous facilities and assets in 5 states, will ensure that those customers continue to benefit from competition from these critical services. Now, Ben, I'm pretty sure you can't talk about any of this. There's probably not been definitive answers to the State Department, but it does talk about getting rid of landfills. We happen to have a landfill. There's a big one down in Chattanooga. Kind of curious as to how we fit into the overall scheme of this piece of paper. And I'm sure you can't give me that direct answer tonight, but I wanted this commission to be understanding that there's a lot going on here. I believe if you recall, I talked about Republic Services last March. They are the second largest waste management company in the country by volume. And Santec and Republic go head to head in the state of Tennessee. What they're basically saying that in certain states, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, as far up as New York, that by merging these two, it takes away competition, both in the commercial side, the garbage pickup side, and the landfill side. Santec's a company that's $10.2 billion as of 2020. Excuse me, as Republic is, Santec in 2019 was 140 billion. Santec's very small in Republic's overall scheme of things. They are very, very large, and they will keep companies like Santec in place for a minimum of 2 years before they bring in their own people. You need to understand how they negotiate and what that will mean to this commission. I'm not sure we should continue any negotiation, and I'm kind of curious as to this other document that was handed out tonight, disclosure plan. That's my second point. Disclosure plan says that you've got 40.7 acres by 2028, which was the year after this contract ends, with the 1-year extension. Area CA1 has been closed for years. On this chart, it doesn't say anything about elevation. Are we gonna leave the elevation as is? We're gonna take it up to,
We've done away with negotiations on the contract, so there are no negotiations taking place on the extension or the amendments.
what is this big yellow document in here?
Talking about the phase closure.
The
Plan
phase
document?
closure plan right there
That's-
is what TDEC is requiring.
It's a TDEC requirement. not
Is a TDEC
Right,
requirement.
this is for the June 30th deadline.
Yes, that's what that is.
Yeah, this is not a negotiation point relative to a contract extension.
Okay, so
No.
where did the words read? Again, I'd like to know what the elevation is on this closure plan, and what's preventing Area C1 from being closed now. There's no reason to wait another 4 years. It's already at elevation. It's already at closure height, unless you're planning on filling it higher. And I don't know, Santec can answer that question. You said something about a merger on May 3rd?
That's the projected closure date.
Yeah. We'll be dealing with new people after that. All right, I just wanted to bring your attention to what I discovered today. Still, I guess you saw the same stuff, right?
Yeah,
Took
I
me
got it about a week ago.
about a week ago.
Yeah, I think it was about a week ago, so.
I decided to come to the meeting tonight and just punched into my computer merger. This article came up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, hello, Miss Pat.
Hello. I guess I'm gonna follow up on a couple of issues, concerns that I brought up last month. I guess I'm a stickler for paperwork, as you all know.
And remember, I'm learning new paperwork, so go
I know.
gentle on me.
But this is old paperwork. This goes back to March and April of 2020. And I think it's important, I was going to also ask with regards to the audit, whether those 2 months, since we don't have the paperwork that shows the host and security fee for those 2 months, whether they're also accounted for in the audit. The other question and concern that I have is that when it comes to reporting the financial information, it is the responsibility of the contractor to furnish the monthly reports. And according to the contract, 5.1, and I'm gonna skip down to the contractor shall report monthly to the commission on its operations, and unless otherwise excused by commission, shall send an employee or representative familiar with the contractor's operations at the landfill to attend all meetings of the commission, including all regular meetings and any special call meetings and workshops. Now, there were 2 months, of course, that you did not meet, and those are the 2 months of paperwork that I think Mr. Ben furnished the activity report, but the rest of the information was not forthcoming. But it says in the contract, a monthly operations report shall, not may, not could or may, shall be submitted to the commission at its regular meeting or by mail to the members of the commission if no regular meeting is held for a particular month. So it should have been sent automatically to.
It was mailed to every board member here.
But it's not at the county office building, so where's that copy?
I sent the packet to every board member here that had a packet, and I believe I actually sent two to the chairman at the time.
Okay, I know I have asked for it repeatedly. It is a public record, and if you go by the verbiage that says it shall be sent to the commission,
Which it was.
well, like I said, I haven't seen all of the paperwork. And it's public information, and it should be at the county office building where all the other records should be located. Mr. Field.
That's where it's at.
I have asked Ms. Wells for the paperwork, and it's not there. I think she came up with 1 month, but it's not there.
All the paperwork that was generated goes to the mayor's office, and I'm not sure what happens to it when it hits the mayor's office. I understand your question.
Well, it's more than a question, it's a concern that they are public records and the public should have access to the same information that you and the commission is making.
I agree with you. If it's not there, we need to try to figure out where it is. And
It is a legitimate concern, and yes, Pat, on top of everything else that I have had to track down and things that I have had to go to look for and figure out different ways of doing things, I did not address that situation. I will address this one, and I will go back to Anita, and we will hunt down and figure out what has happened to the March and April.
Because like I said, I think I brought it up with Mr. Field a couple of times, and that's
Larry-
why I went to Ms.
Yes, I knew.
Wells, and
I knew
she
you
couldn't
had.
find it.
I think Larry said he had March.
Yeah, I was able to find March because of you, actually.
Yes, I had March.
But we could never find April, no part of April.
Okay, so I will go back and see what I can find out about April.
And then the other concern that I have is, are those 2 months, when it comes to March and April, are the fees included in the audit? And I'll
It
have,
would,
I
yes,
would
we'll,
think they would be.
we will be addressing that with Richard too.
okay, that's it, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. All right, on our agenda, I had Mr. Hill about our audit. I put him close to the top. I hate for him to have to sit and go through everything with us, but I believe he has our report for us on the audit. And you should find a copy of the audit in your packet.
Last two documents have passed.
While you're finding those, and to answer the questions, I think I understood it. We don't audit all reports that the commission gets that are prepared in like Word or Excel or anything. We audit based on what goes to the trustee's office, what's recorded in the finance office. So whether or not you got reports or whether or not reports are publicly available has no bearing at all on what we audit. So with that, we have completed the audit, just pending the board's approval of the draft financial statements. And so if you've got that in front of you on page 1, 2, and 3 is our report. It's a clean or unmodified audit opinion, which is the highest level report a firm can issue as a result of an audit. On pages 4, 5, and 6 are the management's discussion and analysis, and earlier this week, Kevin and Kelly reviewed this and made a few modifications. We just dropped the numbers into it, but that's pretty straightforward. The biggest change coming in, I think, the future, the next to last paragraph of it, the future events section. If you move over to page 7, the statement of net position, as I've told the board in the past, if you take a snapshot of June 30, this is what it looks like. Your cash balance is broken out between operating and the amount held for Poplar Springs landfill. So total cash was $4,195,000. Accounts receivable are the fees that you were due for June that you received in July of 20. And then interest receivable was the interest earned in June, credited in July. Capital assets didn't change except for another year's depreciation of a couple $1,000. So total assets at June 30, 20 are $5,653,919. Accounts payable down at the bottom, just routine bills that get paid every 30 days. And then the big number is the estimated closure, post-closure is $6.8 million. Just as a reminder, and anybody that's new to the board, the county posted a bond as to how much they estimate it would take to do closure and post-closure. And so for the portion of the landfill that's closed, that's put in at 100%. And the portion that's still active, the accounting standards say you take the percentage that the landfill is filled in airspace, which was 80.3% at June 30, 20, times that liability, and that's how much you bring in. So when you do all that math, that comes to $6.8 million at June 30, 20. Assets minus liabilities gives you net position, or in your case, net deficit of about $1.2 million, which is actually less of a deficit than you had in the past. Well, page 8 and 9 shows the activity for the year under operating revenue, the amount of the host agency fee and the post-closure security fees, equaling $323,000. The expenses are pretty straightforward down the page. In the middle, under landfill operations, that's just the increase in that liability for the year. The top of page 8, once we add in some interest income, you actually had a positive change in net position. It's not a net income, but we'll call it that. $25,385, so you actually claw back just a little bit of your deficit that you're trying to recover. And then the last statement is a statement of cash flows, and the most significant number there is page 10, 3 lines up from the bottom. That shows your cash balance went up $363,000 during the year. The notes start on page 12 and go for the next several pages. I don't really want to take your time to read through all these. The closure, post-closure note starts on page 16 and just gives the math and the way all that's recorded. I did notice when I was reviewing this morning, we're going to add one more note that we put in every set of financial statements, and that's about the COVID-19, just that we're aware of it. We considered it doing our audit, whatever impact might be on the commission, which in your case is minimal. But we stick a note in there, just a standard little boilerplate thing, so we'll add that before the final. And then on the back, page 19 and 20, in addition to looking at the numbers, we also look at internal control and compliance laws and regulations, and you'll see there we have no findings. So nothing that's required to be reported in that report as a result of our audit. So first, see if there's any questions from the board, but I think our plan for tonight, if y'all are comfortable enough to go ahead and approve this, then we can issue the final report in the next week or two. File with the comptroller's office. If you want additional time to mull it over, that's fine too. It's whatever the board wants to do.
Yes, I think Mr. Hill and I discussed that too, and I felt like that we have some new people on the board and things, and I told him that it would be on the desires of the board to look over this. We have a deadline of May 30th?
May 31st.
Oh, May 31st. I felt like that some of you might want to take some time and look it over carefully, so it'll be at the board's desires. Yes, Terry.
Yeah, I apologize, I'm dumb as dirt on this finance stuff, but on page 4 down there, at the very bottom of the page, where we got total liabilities and net position, those numbers are identical to the numbers under total assets. That confuses me a little bit, and I don't understand definitions on this stuff. But say, under 2020, under total assets there, we have 5,653,000, blah, blah.
Yep.
And total liabilities, net positions, exactly the same number.
Correct.
I don't understand.
Try not to sound like an accountant answering your question.
Yeah, I need
The-
sixth grade level stuff.
It has to be, is the simple answer, and so it's just the math of a balance sheet, because you have assets, which are the 5,653,000, you have liabilities, which are claims on those assets, and whatever's left over, so that they balance, is your net position, or in your case, the deficit. So that net position is just the math of assets minus liabilities, so it will always balance. It has to balance.
Kind of what we own minus what we owe.
That's a good way to say it.
That was a good sixth grader.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to break it down myself.
Kelly, on page 6, as far as that future events, what do you, since our negotiations over the contract are essentially dead, are we gonna rewrite that section, or what's the?
Yeah, and I can jump in. I took a stab at rewriting basically the first two sentences and the last two sentences. Obviously, you know, in past years, we sort of insinuated that a contract modification was imminent or forthcoming, and that's not the case right now, and so we need to, you know, at least clear that message. So the first sentence I had proposed to change to LCSWDC has engaged in extensive negotiations with the Matlock Bend landfill operator to modify the current operating contract. Then the second sentence, I kept the first part. Over the previous year, LCSWDC and the landfill operator have exchanged multiple drafts of a proposed contract modification. Then I put a period and took out the part where it says completing final draft for approval, etc. And then I struck the last sentence, which said that expects to reach agreement before June 30th, 2020, because obviously we don't expect that, and that didn't happen, and added in a few more sentences, which I'll read to you. The operator is presently in the process of being acquired by another entity pending government approval. LCSWDC will further evaluate the proposed contract modification if and when this acquisition is completed. In the interim, the operator is submitting a phase closure plan for the landfill to the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation for approval. When implemented, the operator's phase closure plan should have some bearing on LCSWDC's estimated future liability for closure and those closure costs.
We discussed that on the phone, that needed to be adjusted, and we decided that putting in something about the phase closure would be appropriate in that area.
So basically wanted to one, make clear that contract modification is not imminent. Two, mention the acquisition for the first time, because that's not been included in any discussion in financial statements. And three, again, like Kelly mentioned, to include a reference to the phase closure plan requirement.
So for the phase closure, and Richard, you can help me make sure I state this correctly, you're interested in what's built and what the liability is that the state carries.
Correct.
And even though we have a document that says that Santec may close some of the landfill at some future date, that's all good, and it puts us in a much better financial position, but from a monetary standpoint, you can't count that towards anything.
Correct, and I guess the amount of the bond that's posted with TDEC takes those factors into consideration. So that if something happened to drop that, then the amount of the bond would drop and that computation would change.
So we really don't have a bond, the county doesn't have a bond with the comptroller, they have a promissory note essentially,
Yeah.
pledging future revenue should the state need to come in to close
Yeah,
it.
you're
So-
exactly right, I misspoke.
Yeah, okay.
The agreement or the amount that TDEC's determined is the closure, post-closure costs.
But it's clearly carried as a liability for us.
Correct.
Okay.
So any changes in the operation of the landfill would change that number, and that's how it comes back to benefit the commission.
And the liability won't really start going down until Santec actually starts closing, physically closing some of the cells.
So as our phase closure plan takes into effect and they start to close those, then we can reflect that in our audit.
As long as the amount that the TDEX has put out there for that liability drops, which logically seems
It
like it
would.
would, then yeah, the math, you do the math, and that would start to drop. Seems like over our years of doing this audit, that number always just slowly creeps up over time, which is inflation and the higher cost of doing things, the more regulations and all that, so it'd be.
But it's also based on how much they're expanding the landfill
Correct,
in terms of opening up new cells.
that's also.
And then all the other stuff that's built out but hadn't been closed yet.
On page 20,
Yes,
there's a note that says, we noted certain other matters that we have reported to management of Loudon County Solid Waste. A letter dated April 6th.
we did, but we haven't prepared that letter yet, but it's got the same comment in there that we had last year. And while it's not required by state law or anything else, you know, that requires it, we think it'd be a good idea for the commission to adopt a budget for the year, just because practically every other government operates under a budget. Yours will be a little more difficult to do since you don't know, you know, with some ease what your revenue's gonna be, but I think you still probably ought to have a budget. So that's a kind of, by the way, good advice, more than it is a violation, internal control issue or a violation of law. So that's the only comment that's in that separate letter.
Okay.
And we'll finalize that provided when we finalize it.
That answered the other question that I was gonna ask, because we talked about a budget before. So I was gonna ask if that was still a.
It is. But a lower level,
Yeah.
not significant enough to.
Gotcha.
So what are we doing? Gonna make corrections to the proposed budget and come back next month? Is that what we're doing tonight?
Well,
Making the wording changes and stuff that needs to be put in there?
Kevin has already provided that new wording to me, which I sound a lot like what he just read off. So if y'all are agreeable with that wording, then we can still wrap it up, or you can take additional time to ponder that.
like I said, that would be on board, what the board wants to do. If you want some additional time to look over this, and, I mean, we're not in, we have a May 30th deadline, but I'm not saying that, I mean, we meet before that May 30th deadline. So I didn't know if you want to take some time to look over it, and then maybe set a deadline out a week or two, and if there are any other changes or anything that you see that you have question about, or if you want to wait and come back. So I'm waiting on board to give me their feedback on that. Terry, you're new to it, so.
Right, any efforts I put into it is, but from a learning standpoint, I'm not in a position to do any corrections or anything, because I'm just, I can't.
Well,
so.
I didn't know if you want to look over the document closely and things. I think that
Well, I will, but I
we
don't wanna
had,
hold up the process either, so, I mean, I'm gonna look at it even further, but
Yeah.
whatever I come up with, it's not, I don't wanna screw with the process here, so.
I think with the changes of that little section there, I don't see anything else in it that we could change. Basically, it's just telling us that we did a pretty good job this year.
made little, not much.
Yeah. We made,
The right direction.
we did better this year than last
Yeah.
year, so that's a positive, no findings, so we don't wanna change that part.
So is it with board recommendation that we go ahead and approve with the corrections made? And is that what I'm hearing?
I'm comfortable with making that motion with the corrections that Kevin, discussed, and I think you can get that typed up and probably send us out an email on
He's
that.
already sent it to me. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
but
already
okay,
sent
right,
it, yeah,
sure.
we've already,
Yeah, so I mean, I'm comfortable with making that motion.
okay. So we have a motion to accept those, changes that we make. and move forward. That was a motion, I need a second. Art's. Art gives his second. Any more discussion?
Just one more question, I apologize.
No,
So there's been a slight improvement here. Is that because of something the board did, is something Santec did, just the way of the world? I mean, how did it come up? Why is there a slight improvement, which, there's still a slight improvement in the deficit, you know, that type of,
Couple of reasons. In years past, and I really don't want to go too far down this road because you'll be here all night. The commission has agreed to pay certain expenses of Poplar Springs
And I say
landfill.
Poplar Springs,
And last year, that number was around $200,000. And so if you factor that out, then last year's loss wasn't as large as it looked
we
to be.
didn't have the same expenses.
And then, as Steve, when he was chair, he and I had numerous discussions on this. There's not necessarily a strict correlation between the type of waste that's accepted and how it fills up the landfill. So some years, the landfill fills up more quickly without generating all the revenue. Some years, it doesn't. And so there's some variability built in there. How much the costs go up, it's just a wide number of factors. But, quit making a larger deficit, so that's encouraging. Interest income was up quite a bit also from the trustee's office. So it all plays in there.
Poplar Springs has always been our,
money pit or something.
It's a bad
The
word.
problem child.
it's a real bad word.
I try not to bring it up. There's no other way to answer the question.
I know. Okay. Any more discussion? Kevin, because this is our audit, do we need a roll call on this?
We haven't done so historically, but I don't know, either way would be fine.
Well, I didn't know, considering we're talking about our audit and things that
It's
we might
fine,
do.
if you wanna do a roll call, I think that's appropriate. Sure.
Okay, so, we'll just take a roll call vote then. We have a motion and a second, so we'll start with Ms. Bivens,
Yes.
Mr. Jameson,
Yes.
myself is yes. Art?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Okay,
Very good.
so all in favor?
We'll wrap it up. We should be able to get it in by the end of the month, so we'll be a little earlier than the extended deadline. And then we'll ship all the information to the finance office, and then y'all have final copies, probably almost absolutely.
Okay,
And then I'll mail the final copies to our stakeholders.
That's right.
The mayors, yes. Yep.
So once we're done, we'll send them to Kevin as we've done in the past. He'll distribute.
Okay.
We'll file a copy with the contractor's office.
all right, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Pritchard. Next on our agenda is cash activity report, finally.
Yep. The adjusted February 2020 combined ending balance is $4,398,535.31. The Poplar Springs subfund balance as of March 2020 is $57,392.41. The combined operating at Poplar Springs March balance is $4,414,845.59. Moving on to the landfill tonnage report. Our 30-day average was 371.91 tons. Our 22.5-day average was 519.2 tons. Next is the customer activity report for your review.
Santex's business is Waste Services of Tennessee.
That's correct. It's our hauling operation.
Had a good month. And all of that tonnage come in at the discounted rate, correct? These figures
What are you referring to?
on Waste Services of Tennessee, the money, the total over here on the side, 46, what the intake was. That's on a discounted rate, is that correct?
That's at the, our internal rate, correct?
Yeah.
Our company rate.
Any other questions on the customer activity report? All right.
Next is the March landfill inspection report. Adam, do you want to address any concerns
I
with
do.
this?
If you look through there, we have 4 AOCs. 8110 was one. Litter control. Also 8350. We had, 8350 was leachate reserve in 2 different spots, but again, it never left the liner system, and throughout the month, we gathered up 12 inches of rain, so that's a fine line, but, no violation. Moving on to 8180, I'm sorry, erosion. Some of our berms was washed in the middle, not washed over. And if you go down to 8510, unsatisfactory cover. So that's, some of the litter is due to the fact that some of it wasn't fully covered. So, but all the problems that have been addressed over the last couple of weeks with no rain, so we're waiting on the next visit.
Inspector don't come at a good time, do they?
No, sir. He was scheduled to come, on 2 different occasions. One week he got the coronavirus or somebody around, so he had to be quarantined. The next week he come that 4 inches of rain, so he pulled his visit, and then he come that following Monday.
Well, I'm surprised you ain't had more litter, issues with the high winds that we've had.
Well, by us moving back down to the bottom of where we at in the summertime, some of the hill, contains a lot of the wind off of us, so it's good. On a good note is, we did not wash the road one time this month. Did not. The rain washed it, but we didn't put nothing out there for it to wash off, so.
Well, I applaud you on that, because that has been one of the worst things, is washing your road during a pretty day. And you only wash it when it rains now. I ain't heard of one peep.
We don't wash it when it rains. The rain, Mother Nature does. We haven't touched it with our water truck.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
So kudos to our team at the landfill for,
Good
get
job.
4 inches of rain and we, managed not get no mud on the road the next day. Somebody's doing a good job. So I praise my team all the time.
Next is the material classification report.
Do you have questions on it?
We had 9,502 tons of MSW. We had 1,551 tons of special waste, 629 tons of sludge. Our total material was 11,721 tons. We had 81% MSW, 19% special waste, 5% sludge. Next is the waste characterization report. You go to look over. Next is the tire report. In March, we had 12.68 tons, bringing our annual total to 296.21 tons.
Ben, why are we down on tires for March?
Adam, you want to speak to that?
Well, yes. For the last 3 weeks, I've been calling somebody to come and pick the tire trailer up, pick them up.
Oh,
So
no.
this is already with one full, and I knew the other one was gonna get full fast too. So for the last week, maybe a little over a week, maybe a week and 1 day that we've been taking no tires due to the fact we had nowhere to put them.
And let me clarify, this is outbound. So this is what is going out of the landfill. Coming into the landfill, we had 38, close to 39 tons.
Yeah.
So Adam and I discussed, and it sounds like they finally got their acts back together, but there for a week or two, we were having trouble getting them picked up. They wouldn't come and pick them up, so.
So, have you got the trailers
We
there?
got one emptied yesterday, but as all the vendors has been calling, wanting to bring them, now the tire trailer that we have in the place.
It's gonna be
is
full.
Oh, yeah.
full, so they're guaranteeing me they'll pick it up Friday. But the contact number that we have, you always gotta leave a message. Nobody's gonna return the call.
No, because they don't wanna hear what you gotta say.
I'm probably not the only one, but we've been having trouble for the last couple weeks.
So when we bring in, what'd you say, 39 tons? We've only got 12 out. Do these tires stay outside? They get stacked in a stack till the
They
trailer
just get
gets off?
tossed in the semi-trailer,
It's all inside the trailer.
open top, they back up and just toss them in.
Dump them over in. I got you.
So while we're on the subject of tires, I actually had someone say that they brought a very large tire down there to you all to dispose of. And I know that we talked about tires before, that your guys don't handle the tires.
I request them not to, cause, you know, what we get paid to do with it, it takes a lot of my time up from
Yeah.
other activities we got going on. So, no. If they can't throw it in the trailer, you know, they have to bring their own piece of equipment, because if I did that for one, they'll start bringing them in there every day, semi-loads at a time,
Yeah,
for the price that we
but
get
it's
out there.
So, yeah, they told me that they had their own machine that they brought with them to put the tire in there. And I'm sitting here thinking, that's kind of cheating the system there. It sounds like to me, it seems like to me. So is it the same price for that great big tire?
You may recall, it was probably 6, 8, 9 months ago,
Yeah,
we discussed adjusting some of these fees.
Yeah.
And discussed putting them in line with the size of the tire and the labor and basically everything that goes into handling a tire that is 500-600 pounds.
yeah,
And I think at the time, we were in the middle of the kind of contract negotiations and decided it may be better just to kind of spearhead that point once we get through those. But it is a topic that needs to probably be discussed again. So
yeah.
we can Adam and I can chat and I'll discuss internally and we can see.
Yeah, I mean, because I know we constantly have, we tend to have issues with them coming to pick up the trailers, but seems like you get 2 or 3 of those in there,
Oh, yeah.
and you don't have room for anything else, so we're putting our, you know, our dealers and everybody else in a bind, not being able to take their tires.
Right.
And we made the same amount of money on 3 as we
Yeah.
would have 50, so.
In the past, I allowed them to put them on the ground because I know the vendors has got to get rid of them, but again, it
Yeah.
takes us day and a half to pick them up. 'Cause
What
most of the
size,
time, you gotta do it by hand.
Yeah.
what size you talking about, Adam? Tractor tire,
Oh,
backhoe
it
tire?
varies from this size to a tractor tire.
Yeah.
I mean, but, you know, again, I
Is it
offer no
something,
effort.
is it something that we could consider maybe doing on a special, like a special time that they could bring just those tires, like once every 2 weeks or something, those large tires? I mean, just,
I mean, if they're ready, if you all are ready to have that conversation, then.
you and Adam have the conversation.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
bring it-
I think
get
we should
back with
probably
us.
present some options and some adjustments to the current system to maybe help
Yeah.
streamline it and calculate the appropriate cost for the tire being disposed. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Because I don't even think, the State Department doesn't give us extra funds for larger tires either. It's the same no matter what.
By the ton.
I mean, it just, when they told me that they had went out there with that, I was, and then I see the tire out, we're having trouble seeing everything well. They just took up a whole lot of very
Right.
valuable space. So, yeah.
Next is the airspace utilization report. Our full date is April 2024. Our 3-month average is 9,861 tons. Next is our host and security fees. Our host fees was $11,887.39. Our security fee was $15,009.33. Kelly, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay.
The last documents were the audit, but we've already covered that.
Yeah. Sorry. So, are we at the phase closure? Annual progress report?
Yeah, APR, I think that was submitted, was it not? We didn't have any further, I made the final comments that had been, requested, and then it has.
It's ready for submission.
Okay.
I think we discussed in the last meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, I think y'all made a motion to say it's final
Yes.
with the appropriate changes. And the state actually extended that deadline till the end of April. And so to help the numbers, we were gonna see if we could get a few more customers that statistically are hard to get in touch with, into that report. So it is ready to be submitted.
Okay, so that's on you guys, you'll submit it, and
Yes.
just let us know the date it's been submitted, okay?
So Kelly, I think the way the process works is once everything's submitted and the chair is kind of the final blessing, are you familiar with the TDEC website for how you approve it?
No.
If you talk to Tim Hendrick, he should be able to walk you through that.
All right.
And then once you approve it, it goes to the mayor and he approves it and it goes on to the state.
So the process is it needs to go to, I need to speak with Tim Hendricks first.
Well, Tim can walk you through getting into the state system to sign it.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
So we move on to our phase closure plan report, and I did copy off and have prepared, and I blew up this because
The note section.
the notes at the bottom, so everyone could see it easier.
Joe, do you happen to have a
Yeah,
copy of that on the overhead? Like I talked through a few things, because I've had some, if not, I think most people should have copies.
yeah, I don't know if I do.
I had some conversations with Dr. Bacchus about this. Obviously, I sent it out to the commission as soon as we received a copy from Santec. Probably the first question that came to mind for myself and others was, is this it? You know, what's TDEC really expecting? This is a map, but doesn't have a narrative or a
Sure.
report or a, you know.
No, there is a narrative section to come, and we just spoke with the consultant this week, and hopefully we'll have that to the board by the middle of next week. It's literally going to more or less just support what this drawing articulates. But yes, there will be a narrative section that is.
Okay, that was the one thing that jumped out, and I spoke with Dr. Bacchus about that. Obviously, this is a new requirement with TDEC, so, you know, it's, you know, we'll see as TDEC kind of fine tunes its expectations and requirements of this plan. From a substantive standpoint, Dr. Bacchus, and again, we're just working off the map, and then the key is defining the three areas, and if you look down with the estimated closure year, that's really the most important part of what we're talking about. From a substantive standpoint, probably the biggest issue that Dr. Bacchus raised preliminarily is with respect to closure area 1. And something that, you know, the first thing he raised that jumped out was, why wait till 2025 to close this? Closure area 1 is, in his expectation, very close to being completely ready to close. He said at least 11 of the 12 acres could be closed tomorrow. He pointed that there's only one small area, and that's what I was going to see if Kelly could point up the map.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah,
that one it?
that should get it, yeah.
Sorry.
There we go. All right. So with respect to closure area 1, which again is this, I'll take that a little smaller there. That's perfect, okay. With respect to closure area 1, he said nearly 80 to 90% of it is filled at final elevation and subject to closure. The only area in closure area 1 that might have a very limited amount of space is right here that abuts to closure area 3. And you see the highlighted grade lines here on closure area 3. They're building that area up. And so he said there may be a very small portion here in closure area 1 at the bottom corner, which is actually the north corner adjacent to closure area 3, that may have some small amount of airspace remaining. But from his perspective, that was probably the most significant comment, is that closure area 1, there's no reason to wait until 2025 to close that.
Kevin, let me ask a question.
Yeah.
When you look up there at the ridge, Adam, we look from the guard shack to the ridge. Is this area 1 that we're talking about
Yes, some of it, yes.
for the most part? Well, what I don't understand under the present day contract that we have, they can go up 52 more feet on that. Under contract.
Right. I think, at least what Dr. Bacchus was, and this is, we talked about this, when he was referring to the ridge, and I may have this a little bit off, but he said the highest point of the final elevation would be in this area.
Yeah, that, the line, the
Somewhere.
super out there, it almost mirrors the ridge there,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and so he said with respect to closure area 2, that would be the highest point that it could go up significantly. He
But I
did,
thought area 1 had the, what was it, Ben, what was the elevation on that, 11?
The current elevation,
Yeah, under contract right now, what's current?
1108 is where we go.
1108.
Is the maximum.
Is the
It's
maximum.
maximum.
and you're currently close to 11, aren't you?
1070.
Oh, I thought you were 10, okay, 10, 9.
No, we're 1070.
Yeah, but we're at, where right now?
1070.
1070.
Yes, sir.
So he's 30-something feet still left under the contract as it is today.
38 feet.
38 feet.
So that would ultimately, in time, it'd take longer because they're, the way they're building out.
Build it up. And that's why, and again, this is, and I've asked Dr. Bacchus to get a little bit more detail and get us some reports and the like, but this is just off of some conversation. He thought that that area is what I was highlighting adjacent to closure area 3 where they're building it up. And that's the area where there is the most remaining airspace in closure CA1.
Okay.
With respect to CA2, he said roughly 33% of it, and again, we were talking rough numbers, this isn't a report. He's got all the data that he can run more specific detail, but he said roughly 33% of it could be subject to closure now or in the immediate future. He said closure area 2 is going to be most impacted by any potential expansion. And so you realistically wouldn't want to jump into closure area 2 because that might impact your expansion plan and how you're planning to build up and as you expand.
I guess my question on this, does this meet the criteria for the government?
For Tito.
The short answer is
We don't know.
we don't know.
We don't know.
But
And
Santec's supposed to know this stuff.
Well, I'm not sure TDEC knows.
I
Is that the issue? TDEC?
This is all new to
This is
them
new to them.
too. So maybe TDEC's gonna say, well, give us what you got and then we'll pick which ones we like best and then that's the new requirement or
Well,
something.
I'll tell you,
there may be some element of
the consultant we're using, has done these for other companies and is aware of what TDEC is looking for and has advised that we're in line with that.
Okay. Yeah, cause this is all, I mean, this is a new
And you said that-
requirement.
Dr. Bogus said that 33% of area 2
Yeah.
is subject to closure.
using rough numbers. That was what he said over the phone to me. But
Right
again,
now, right now.
That's what he told me. But again, we can ask him, he's got all the data and the models, and he can actually run a very, accurate analysis. These were just kind of, first glance comments and thoughts. But I think the biggest issue he sees is closure area 1. Why is it being pushed back to 2025 when it's, the vast majority of it can be closed? That's really where he's seeing the biggest issue.
Has this been filed yet?
No,
No, this is just the draft. Remember, we have till June 30th.
couple other, I think one of the biggest issues is the closure area 1. He said that those have been at final, or the vast majority of that area has been at final grade or very close thereto for a long time, and you're not gonna see any further settlement at that point once it's remained dormant. He said that when you actually conduct the final grade, that does add some additional waste when pushing the dirt around, that's gonna really take it up there anyway. He said, the ridge, some of the ridges, both whatever may be left in closure area 1 and 2, the high points. You know, obviously that was subject of our discussion on the contract modification to limit that. He said the ridges, although there's a lot of height, he said there's not a lot of volume there.
Right.
And so, you know, while it may seem like there's, you know, oh gosh, we got another 30 some odd feet of potential, and that's of concern just from an appearance standpoint.
Right.
But from a volume and a closure standpoint, those areas really aren't holding as much volume as you might think. So those were some of his comments. You know, he mentioned some of the things like Tammy said, that he's had conversations with folks at TDEC, and there's some differing opinions about how hard they're gonna come down on this. You know, I think they're evaluating what submissions they get and, you know, may respond accordingly. Because there's not, as you can see from their initial letter, there's not a whole lot of clarity in what they've been requesting. And so I think it's kind of a work in progress from TDEC's standpoint. You know, Dr. Bacchus and I talked about, you know, some other states that have much firmer regulations and are much further advanced. He mentioned Georgia, Illinois, and a couple others. You know, that they're putting in specific timing requirements that once you get to 2 feet of final elevation, you have 180 days to close it and fill it. So that you can't just wait for years to, you know, under the guise of saying it's settlement. Because realistically, these things aren't going to settle that much once you get very close to that final elevation. And there's some other states that have regulations that if you leave a cell dormant for 180 days, that is, if you're not adding waste to it, you're just letting it sit, you got to close it, or you have to put on at least 2 feet of cover, in essence. And he said that becomes cost prohibitive, and so people are closing, or operators are. So my thought is to sort of task him to run some of the existing models. We're not reinventing the wheel here. He's got all the data, really. And to come back with what he thinks, from his perspective, might be more appropriate, particularly from a timing standpoint. I don't think he really took issue with the grading and the various areas. I think he really took issue with the timing standpoint, that he thinks this is getting pushed too far down the road.
Why can we not, Ben, accelerate the Area 1?
Let me find out for you.
I mean,
That was the biggest, if there's one, you know, point he wanted to really emphasize, is why is closure area 1 not closed sooner? Closure area 2, there's some strategic reasons. If we're going to expand, that you don't want to close it and lose volume and airspace and you know, the process. But and 3, it's just not there yet. But 1, I think that would be an important question.
And Ben, did you say that the narrative was coming?
It is, and I think the narrative may have some clarification, justification on these questions.
Okay.
So hopefully we can have that to you by sometime next week.
Okay, so I'll wait for anything further with Dr. Bacchus until I get the narrative, so that he can have the whole picture before he provides a kind of a response, or at least some
I think that would
position
be
points.
wise, yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple questions relative to this. You know, my guess is that this will probably pass muster with TDEC based on the narrative and folks that are preparing it do this kind of stuff for a living. Really, my question revolves around the notion that the contract that we have that doesn't look like it's gonna change right at this moment, expires in 2027. And you're obligated, Santec's obligated to give us 2 years worth of airspace beyond that, so we need airspace to 2029.
120,000 tons or 2 years.
So you've got, right now we're showing this footprint based on the current
Correct.
permitted airspace with TDEC filling up in 2028, right?
Correct.
So that means we're a year short at least.
There will likely be an expansion
Okay.
At what size is still TBD. But I think the idea would be to do an expansion that allows us to get to the end of the contract, leave you all the appropriate airspace without running off volume.
So I guess in terms of this expansion, that's a piece that works into the puzzle in terms of how you do, if there is an expansion, this is gonna have to be redone to
Correct.
accommodate the expansion. So at some level, I
Correct.
mean, what we're looking at here is, it meets, I think it meets the requirements. But really, the key is gonna be, what does the expansion look like? And then what does that have in it in terms of this closure and, you know, meeting the contract
Correct.
terms? Any idea when you guys are gonna decide on the expansion or not, and what that might look like?
I don't know at this time.
Okay. So I guess one of the questions for, Loudon in particular, in terms of the elevation and the visibility of the landfill, I mean, right now, we're at about 1070. All the negotiations that we were going through, a lot of that was based on keeping the height to an acceptable level. The current permitted elevation is 1108, which is what this is designed to accommodate, which is 38 feet higher than where we're at now. And, I guess part of the question for, the folks from Loudon is how do we, where do we want to end up elevation-wise, and how do we get to that place that we're happy in? I don't think we have an answer right now, but it's just something that y'all need to think about. We need to think about.
Yeah, I don't think right now that can be, I mean, it's not up for negotiation, and right now our happy point is 1108.
Well, that's what's in our current
Yeah.
permit with TDEC.
So,
Ben,
I mean,
question. Does Centec operate under something like a best management practices program or something? If so, where would that come from?
We have the operations plan that was put together in '96, which, goes back to kind of discusses all of those. I believe it's '96. That has a best practices section, I believe, associated with it.
And is that unique to Centec, or would Republic come in with a different set? How does that work?
I'm not positive. Let me figure that out. Let me ask the question.
Ben, I really feel for you. I know you've got a lot of variables that you
I'm
don't know the
I'm
answer
trying.
to.
I'm
So,
trying.
I think I speak for all of us when I say we fully and truly understand that,
Thank you.
and we're sorry.
But yeah, I think in terms of kind of moving forward in that discussion, let's get their narrative. Once we get that, I'll get that to Dr. Bacchus and kind of ask him to do a more detailed analysis. This was just sort of a, first glance, thoughts. But we'll have him run an analysis and, get his recommendations, what he thinks is appropriate, and particularly with the eye towards accelerating the closure schedule.
Any other questions, comments? All right, since you're on a roll, Mr.
Okay,
Stevens, you want to go to the attorney?
That covers, let's see, a couple other things we've been talking about. One follow-up for me was relative to, if you may recall, the solar farm and the request letter we got from a company called Nexamp. I've had initial discussion, but nothing of much substance with them, and I wanted kind of my follow-up to them is, we're willing to listen, but before we go very far down the road, we want you to tell us what you think the regulations are relative to putting solar panels on any portion of a landfill. Because, I don't want to waste anybody's time if that's something TDEC is not even going to consider, either being on some closed portion of the landfill, adjacent to some closed portion of the landfill, or certainly relative to any active site. So that's kind of the to-do back to them. I also talked to Dr. Bacchus about it a little bit. He said that he was very interested in this, and he said that solar technology has improved dramatically in terms of the weight of these panels. and that he is seeing it on landfills. He doesn't know for sure where Tennessee is yet, but he said he is seeing it on a number of landfills now that they've lowered the weight and feel that it wouldn't interfere with the cap or any closure or any portions of the closed landfills. So I think this is both a short and long-term, objective for us to keep looking into. Obviously, we may be kind of on the front end from Tennessee's standpoint, but I think the technology is advancing and it may become more and more possible in the near future. And if that's a beneficial use to some portion of the property, whether it be the actual landfill property or
The party
any of
property.
our buffer or barrier property, it could be a beneficial use. So we're going to keep having those discussions and kind of keep that open, both from a standpoint of talking to these business entities that do this for a living, as well as talking to the regulators.
So they're supposed to get back with you? Well, we'll keep that on our agenda then, see what they come back with.
The only other thing is the survey of the property, and Kelly and I and Ben have been talking about that. Kelly did a lot of good research on our property boundaries and gave Ben all the information. I'll let you jump in if you want.
Well, we were just having a discussion on the property and how our property lies. And there was, I'm sure Steve can tell you too, that there was one piece of property that, that we owned, and another, there was a closer piece of property that a lady, owned, and it seemed that solid waste swapped pieces of property with her, so that would made one complete piece for solid waste. And so therefore we had a little trouble digging up the survey and making sure that we had the outline of the property.
So
I think we've got it all straightened out. We went back and did the property tax records, and also went back and got all of the original, got the deeds that are on record, and I think that we got everything straightened out so that we do have an accurate outline, right, Adam?
Yes.
An accurate outline
Yeah.
of the property.
So I think the next step is Santec's gonna get us an actual estimate of cost relative to the survey work and the clearing work. And then bring that back to us, and we'll.
I think we did some of their work for them too,
Yeah, I think we
because
did, yeah.
I brought
Yeah.
the surveys that are on file and recorded at the courthouse, well, here at the annex.
So getting an estimate on the survey, that may be a little tricky, because they're gonna have to walk the whole property to give you an estimate, or he can just verbally give it to you about what it would take.
I would say that, most surveyors, any surveyor I have dealt with, and I have dealt with for, we had 150 acres that we had to have surveyed, and things that they can usually give you a pretty good ballpark figure from looking at your maps, what it would cost.
I would think so, yeah.
What are you finding, Adam?
Meaning,
Well, is your surveyor
what,
saying?
I'll get actual quote from him tomorrow, but what he had, verbally said was way lower than what you proposed on the last meeting, of $4,000.
Well, and I think with this new information, he'll have the information he needs to give a pretty close, accurate estimate.
Right, and it's, like I say, it's not out of the ballpark.
So we'll get that to him.
And then we'll get a quote on actual clearing, because that's.
The grinding is $150 an hour.
Okay.
So, I can get the guy to give us a minimum of 10 hours.
We'll get these things in writing.
Sounds good.
Just don't come down the hill to my place.
Right.
Start erosion issues.
That's right. think that's,
Well, then there's not a large piece now, looking at the map that
Do
comes
what?
down your way. There's not a large.
It's not a
piece.
large, it's about 175 feet,
Yeah,
and it's fenced off, boundaries on both sides to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
So we had that fence put in when we done the trade swap with, Skaggs, what?
Ashley's?
Paul,
Skaggs.
Paul, I've got Mabel. and-
yeah. It was Ashley property, and it was all, it was the daughter-in-law.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
two
Two
of them,
sisters out of
two
Maryland,
sisters in there.
and their husband bought up the rest of the property down there.
So one question on, as we're doing this activity, I'm assuming that some of the fence is probably up and okay, and some of the fence probably could use some repair. Are we gonna do the fence repair while we're doing the clearing and,
Well, if you just got the boundaries mowed down,
yeah,
you know, you don't necessarily have to have a fence, as long as you got a clear line of sight to the pins. And
Right.
if you put up a steel red fence iron post on each pin and mow on our property, it's gonna be there for years,
Right.
as long as you do it every year.
yeah,
And the first time will be the worst, because
Yeah.
it's usually the roughest, because you're gonna get into old fencing and wires and other stuff, but them cyclone shredders don't play games.
They don't care.
so your thinking is to do the survey, get it cleared, put up good pins, and don't worry about the fence too much?
Some of the pins are already in place
Yeah.
with pink flags on them.
Yeah,
I've seen some of them.
yeah,
But then again, that fence row is so growed up, right down from the Purdy house down there on the right, it goes up the hill. When you get to the top of the hill and it makes a hard left, there's a pin right there. So it shouldn't be that big of a job.
but the first time's the roughest one, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we'll wait back on here from Adam on that one too, and Ben.
That's all I got.
Is that all you have? All right, I have just a couple of things on mine. In your packet, if you noticed, I put in, let me get it out. We had Bruce Hamilton has resigned. So if you, well, here it is, misplaced. I did include that in our packet, and he resigned, March 10th. He sent to the mayor effectively immediately. I hereby resign from the Solid Waste Commission. After last night's commission meeting, I have concluded that 5 years of working on the contract extension with Santec have been fruitless and will never come to fruition. This will mean a loss of millions of dollars to the residents of Loudon County. Mayor, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve the residents of Loudon County. So, the mayor has put on the workshop for our county commission meeting for next month, a recommendation for a replacement for Mr. Hamilton. So I can get back with you on what his recommendation is and where will we be moving forward with the person who will be joining us. The next thing I had was, we have that attorney always wants to get paid, so therefore I do have an invoice for him to be paid. So if anyone wants to take a look at that one too, I'll let you know on that. Evidently, I also had, for the employee, I have a statement from the accounting office too. I have talked to Tracy about this, and since the employee involves the chairman now, I talked to Tracy about what we needed to do to cover ourselves audit-wise too, and her suggestion was that since I am the chairman, and normally the chairman signs off on those invoices, that for me to sign that, but to cover ourselves, that our vice chairman also needed to sign that document. So I will be bringing that every month to be signed off on. All right. So I wanted to let you all know that part. The last thing I have, after doing lots of emails back and forth and trying to come up with how, Steve, I don't know how in the world you kept up where paperwork went, but
Sometimes they did better than others. Pat can tell you about that.
it has been a journey to figure out things. Ben has been very good, Kevin has been very good, and we've talked back and forth, but I would like for the board to make a consideration of purchasing iPads for this board. I think it would save on us making so many multiple copies of documents. I think with our technology that we could pull things up. I am not suggesting that we don't make paper copies, because I know that we have paper copies that need to be for our public, and I want to make sure that I do have an in-hand paper copy for our county records too. But I would like to see us that possibility so that we could get iPads and we could have those right here. It would save a lot of time. It would save a lot of things like pulling up this face closure plan that everyone can look at it and we could write in our notes or make our corrections and things there.
Does this include Santec being able to file on an iPad and share documents to us instead of the paper documents?
We can do that.
Yes,
We can
You
do
got that capability?
Yes, we do.
yes.
The city of Loudon already provides council members with iPads, so I would not need one. Please don't make me have 5.
5 to carry around. I
So,
understand.
But the city of Loudon does provide their council members with iPads, and I think that this would be an appropriate use of that iPad because this is city business.
Yes,
So,
yes.
unless they were to tell me otherwise, but as of current, it does nothing but sit there and wait on an email to come through, so it would actually put it to some benefit of use.
And Ben and I talked about it too, because I told Ben that I just felt like it'd be a whole lot easier. I think it would be easier as far as when I need to submit records to the county too. And just give us an opportunity to see things better. I think my whole point on this too is I would like to get agendas and packets on the website a whole lot faster, and I think we can do that way. I really do. So feedback, yes, no. Larry?
I ain't gonna,
Steve, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. The other thing I was gonna suggest, realizing the time that you've got to put into all the duties that you try to do, is there any, does the county have a part-time person that we could tap into, or that we could hire additionally part-time to help with some of this admin stuff? As far as, we used to have a part-time person that did some of our admin stuff a long time ago, and I'm wondering if that might be a way to provide you for some relief for some of this administrative stuff that you're gonna have to wrestle through. And it's a question to think about.
That's a good question. I feel like I could be more efficient if I could do things more electronically with you. You know, I'm not sure that the county has somebody part-time right now. So,
I got a question. Who keeps up with the minutes? You?
Yeah.
I mean, far as,
Actually,
We-
that's another,
we draft
It's a
Chase-
process, yeah.
chase the dotted line here,
It's,
okay?
it's a,
Samtec, under their contract, is obligated to be here and take the initial minutes. They send the draft to me. I look through the minutes, make any suggested revisions. The chair will look at the minutes typically during that same round. And then after that, I
Follow
send
the
them out to
bouncing
draft
ball.
to the board.
basically, it'd be the same, but you'd be sending it electronically to our iPad.
And I think, part of this, we're also looking at,
And I can
Speeding
make
it up.
Expedite.
yes, I could make adjustments easier, we could do, I mean, I had to, we had an issue with recording last month, cause we are still having an issue with internet, and they're getting all that taken care of down here. So therefore, we were very fortunate enough to get our recording elsewhere. And it's just, I think it would be all around help Ben, help myself, and help Kevin with the minutes and with the other documents.
As with any process, it's labor intense to start up. But once you get it fine-tuned down electronically is the way to go.
Mhm.
So right now, you listen to what I say and you write it down for the minutes for next month.
we record it or we watch the video, and I give a lot of credit to Adam and these two ladies right here who spend probably
Thank you.
a good part of 2 to 3 to 4 days rewinding, fast forwarding, rewinding, fast forwarding, rewinding, fast forwarding to figure out what exactly was said and make sure it's accurate.
So are you using that camera or you got your little recording device?
Both.
We are doing both.
Okay.
And even Tammy Wampler, who does our county meetings, I spoke with her about this, and she says typically it takes her 3 to 4 days just to do our minutes. That's one reason I'm trying to make sure we stay on track and streamline and get things going, because
And then-
our minutes are tremendously long.
very long.
All of that
They're
information,
very long.
all that information then comes to me, and our department admin spends another 2 days putting these together.
But any which way, it starts with you, goes to Kevin.
And finish.
Kevin, based on the information and accuracy, then he forwards it to the commissioners
And me.
and you.
To me.
Then you make copies to put out there,
In here.
chop down 10 trees for you.
That's correct.
Yep.
What do you need? You need a vote?
All to support the land deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have a price on what these iPads cost?
No, I just wanted to throw the idea out.
You know,
A little-
iPads really aren't that bad anymore. Some are if you get into the pros and all that, but honestly.
Does the county have a flavor that they use as far as, so I would encourage you to figure out what the county has and figure out what a price is to set everybody up and take a
Actually,
look at.
we have had some bids going on for different, new technology that we're doing in the county anyway, so I've already talked to kind of Susan. I wanted to run it by you all first, just to see if it is a possibility,
I think it's a good idea.
$50.
so.
Yeah, but you brought.
And I think eventually, we could have
Yeah.
a lot more of the documents kind of scanned in, and, we could have the last year's packets or the last year's minutes,
Right there.
all accessible, because we oftentimes ask the question, hey, what did we do, that month, or what happened then, or what was the issue back then? So, I mean, I think it could take us to a point where we're more efficient even during our meetings and not asking as many follow-up questions and to-do items.
So the county, if you send it to the county, instead of taking a paper copy to the county, they can receive it electronically and get it out quicker.
There we go.
I'm good with it. Crank that puppy up, let's go.
Well, if the board feels like, let me get some more information and come back next month, and I'll get with Susan Husky and see,
Do you need a motion?
well, I
We're seeing, because we're
promise
looking to project to spend money on a project.
you. Yes, we do need a motion.
That's what I thought.
Well, if you're just gonna get more information at this point, there's no plan to vote on. So-
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, we can just wait until we get,
Wait,
Wait till I get
Pricing
more
and
information.
all
I
that.
just wanna see if everybody's willing.
I'm
That
a
sound-
little bit on the Luddite side, okay? My cell phone is in my pocket, it's turned off, and I can't use it most of the time anyhow because my fingers are too fat. I get emails and I review the minutes in advance by emails.
Yeah,
I don't see why that doesn't help matters a little bit. I'm not sure that everybody does that. But things that move around by email are comfortable to me.
yes,
And iPad's a whole new universe.
yes, yes. But we would make sure that we have your email right there, programmed right there, so your iPad would be.
It did throw me for a loop, and I apologize that I did not get your email, because those emails started getting sent to my city email, which I don't have access to except on the iPad. And when I checked it, I saw that that's where all my emails were going. And they were in a little separate file over here.
So you had a vacation, didn't realize it.
So, yeah, I was like, oh,
And Art, I don't, paper copies will not completely go away.
No, they will not.
So I think it would just help eliminate 10 of the 17 packets.
I said I'm not a Luddite.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that there's always a lot more enthusiasm than you start off that way, and it may speed things up down the
Sure.
road, but initially it's
Oh,
it's
yes,
got that
correct.
growth to it.
Well, then I will come back with some more information, and see where we can go from there. Alright, and besides that, I don't think I had anything else. Let's see, let me look at my checklist here, make sure I got all that, and so I don't believe I do, so are there any other items for consideration?
So one of the things that, when we're doing our annual progress report, one of the things that TDEC will be looking at is what's our 10-year plan? Because we're obligated to have a 10-year plan with the county or with the state. And right now, we've got a contract that goes through 2027. We've got a language in the contract that gives us airspace to 2029. And we're supposed to have a 10-year plan. And I think it would behoove the board just to think about what do we want to, are we going to stay in the landfill business? My guess is yes, but, what's that going to look like down the road? And if TDEC comes back with something about where's your 10-year plan, we need to have some kind of an answer. And I'm just throwing that out there for people to consider.
Alright,
I got one other thing. Adam, where'd you say you were at on the Republic deal?
Ben?
Ben?
Ben,
Uh,
this is Ben.
Ben,
That's
I'm
Adam.
sorry.
Yeah, director will be in, man.
Yeah.
So, there was, the DOJ has signed off on a few documents that were filed on the 31st. They signed off on those documents back in, it was Friday. I found out about it yesterday afternoon, which allowed for a tentative closure date to be established for May 3rd. Now, all of the documents that were filed, including the divestitures, et cetera, are all outlined on the Department of Justice website. So all that information is available to anybody who wants to go look at it. So tentatively, there is a closure date of May 3rd.
Kevin, I got one question
yes, sir.
to you. Is there any language in our contract about our operator changing ownership or business? I can't find it if they are.
No, there was a section, nothing that, Did you ask me this a few months ago, Larry? I don't know exactly where it was.
I think there's language in there about them not being able to assign the contract to somebody else.
Here it is. Yeah. This agreement or any portion of may not be assigned by the contractor without the express prior written consent of the commission. However, this isn't an assignment, they're purchasing a stock
It's a
acquisition.
stock purchase.
So it's not an assignment and doesn't fit within that provision. And so I don't think that, I don't think there's anything in the contract that would address basically a stock acquisition and how that would impact the agreement.
But what is an assignment then?
An assignment would be if Santec said, we're gonna assign this contract to a completely different company and let them run it, but try and use this same agreement. Whereas-
Assign it to Republic without Republic buying it.
Correct.
That's
right.
exactly
Yeah.
what it means.
Whereas Republic's just essentially becoming Santec by acquiring their stock.
Santec will be a wholly owned subsidiary of Republic.
So Santec will still
It'll
be
exist.
exactly what it is from a corporate standpoint.
I hope in the future, when future contracts get negotiated, that we put in some different language going down the road.
Yeah, that, I agree. That was something that jumped to my mind the minute this all came out, a year ago. I thought, could they even do this? And, I'm flipping through just like you did.
I've done the same thing, but
I think it would be wise, as you come across things that on that contract, that you start marking up that contract as to areas of deficit, I would say.
I agree. Just keep a running list of issues and concerns as they evolve. You never know what's coming. And this is a different one.
Alright, anybody else? If there is nothing more, I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
I take the motion last, I figured I'd make it this time too. Art's always second on everything.
Just reason.
I beat you to it today.
No.
You were ready, weren't you?
He was ready.
Oh,
There you go.
Art's not the motioner, but he's the second.
he's the second one.
What he provided.
We don't know about the iPads, if you leave one laying around, the grandkids will load a game on it.
Yeah.
Okay?
We both do that.
So what do you think so far, Gary?
I'm way behind the power curve.
Well, being the new, pretty soon you won't be the newest person, we'll have somebody we were using.
April and May, I'm out.
No, I'd say the
March.
initial impression I enjoyed was how it's gonna be.
You done spilled your coffee.
Collaborative,
You done good.
working relationship.
information, but I came.
Wasn't necessary.
Read what you
Not
read.
necessarily. Sometimes it's more collaborative than others, but.
I was going, Bruce made a pretty strong comment in his resignation thing. What's with the millions of dollars that he thinks would?
Well, so Bruce has advocated
Written notice.
for a long time that we really needed to move forward on this agreement with Santec.